Hello, heroes. Joe Smith here. Joe Smith's just been sitting out here for the past hour or so, kind of watching the moonrise, looking at the planets and the stars and whatnot, just kind of relaxing, enjoying a fountain drink from, don't know if you can see it there, Come and Go. It's a gas station that started in Iowa, a couple towns over from Joe Smith's hometown. Got the moon there, of course, a real bright light. That white dot to the right and up a little bit, Jupiter. A third of the way from Jupiter to the moon is Saturn. You can see it with the naked eye, but don't think the phone camera's picking it up here. But Chemical Spore Buddy, if you're watching, go and plug in your night light because Joe Smith's fixing to shut the lights off here. And just kind of got some thoughts here Joe Smith's thinking about and all that. Just want to sit the phone down on the picnic table out here and just kind of do a little opinion type thing. And of course, Come and Go does not sponsor this. Just a gas station down the road going into town, and Joe Smith stops that a lot. Friendly people work there, and Joe Smith's opinions and views, of course, do not reflect those of anyone that work at Come and Go. Joe Smith just kind of stopped there on the way home to grab a drink here. Like over the weekend, Joe Smith was on the YouTube, the internet, or that, just kind of some news, political videos, and reading comments and that, and kind of got into there's a discussion, I guess you could say, or argument, mostly, with some liberal dumbass, but, and it's kind of sad and scary that some of these people actually think the way that they do think, but then again, they also think the earth is flat. But this guy, don't know, maybe it's just a 12-year-old or something in his mommy's basement. But he was saying that government needs to do more spending on public services because boomers burden us with too much debt. So people in their 20s now can't afford to own a car or own a house or get married. And it's like, really? Because they have like daycares not only in the high schools but in junior highs around here, and it's hard to find anyone over 18 that's not married around here. People by the time they're in their 20s have 3 kids around here. So, and then also, not to mention, you drive through downtown Bentonville in the evening, like supper time, till like 5 to 10 p.m. or whatever. You'll see a whole bunch of people at these upscale restaurants around downtown sitting out on the front sidewalks or patios that they have. And same thing if you go through downtown Rogers or Dixon Street in Fayetteville. You see these massive crowds of people under 30 out at these places where a beer is like $5 or a mixed drink is $10, and dinner plate is like $40. So don't know where this guy, kid, or whatever living. Maybe he's in like some shithole state like Uzbekistan or as many of you people know it by its abbreviated name of Florida. Maybe things are different, like in other parts of the country, but Joe Smith knows a lot of people around here that are under 30 and own a house and own a car, and nice cars too. And back when Joe Smith was 25, he bought a house, a $200,000 house, up here in the Ozark Hills, and not only that, but put on a 15-year loan. Plus, at the time, Joe Smith already had 4 trucks. So, and that was 25 years old, and that was like 5 years after making minimum wage, working somewhere else. But Joe Smith met his buddy Brian and started doing landscaping and that with them, and mowing, and made good money, and helped after hours fix the trucks and mowers, and got to where Joe Smith just kind of took over managing the shop, and has his own mower shop repair business now, and does some truck repair on the side, plus takes care of the landscape company's trucks and mowers and all that. And Joe Smith owns all the mower shop tools and mower shop. We basically kind of made a standalone business. Joe Smith bought from Brian, and plus a little home garage auto repair shop. Joe Smith has his garage at home. All those tools there Joe Smith owns and has paid off too. And Joe Smith here is early 40s. It's already made $1 million in his life. So, not quite sure what these other children are talking about with all this debt that the boomers left them, to where they can't afford to have a car or a home or a family. Joe Smith told a couple of them, well, send check copies of debt belonging to someone that's over 80 that's incurred prior to 1985, and Joe Smith here reimburse you 100%. Still haven't got any check copies from anyone, of course. These children are like a little confused here. Are you children talking about the national debt, like the United States American national debt? Because that's not your responsibility to pay back. That's nothing to do with you. That's not stopping you from getting a job. That's not stopping you from going and getting a loan and buying a house or a car, or saving up money in a car. But if you think it is, let's talk about where that national debt actually started and came from. Originally, it dates back to the Revolutionary War, 1776-ish. Of course, that's when the country was kind of officially founded. But yeah, somewhere around there, though, is when the debt originally occurred, though. For those of you that had a history class or two, you might remember that the newly formed Continental Congress, prior to the modern day United States government as we know it now being formed, but the Continental Congress at the time of the Revolutionary War tried to print, had like borrow a bunch of money or that to buy guns, supplies, and whatnot to carry on this war to gain their independence from the British Empire. Um, so you guys could all have, like, own your own guns now, and freedom of speech and freedom of press and all that, freedom of religion and whatnot. So the United States racked up some debt then, or the Continental Congress, the original colonies racked up some debt then, and they tried paying for it by printing money originally, which was called the continental currency. But then that was kind of a flop, and there's nothing backing it up, and no one really invested any value or put any value forth into it. But kind of cut a long story short, the debt kind of stuck with from the Revolutionary War, and it was actually down to about 10% of the original amount, and probably would have been paid off clear and free, no debt for the country. But then that year, just before it got paid off, these Democrats that like to have blacks for slaves tried splitting the country as it was at the time in half by seceding from the Union and forming the Confederacy. Well, that caused the national debt within a year to spike back to where it was, or even higher than the Revolutionary War debt. But once again, after the boomers fought to gain independence from the great British Empire so you could be born free and have life, liberty, and pursue happiness, once again the boomers stepped in to stop the Democrats and to free the blacks. So if you, those of you children out there, if you think this money has been wasted so far, please feel free to post a comment with your address so we can have you deported to Cuba or North Korea or something. Because only an anti-American would claim spending money, fight for your freedom, and so you could be born free, and so no matter what race or color you were, you didn't have to worry about being a slave. Okay, that's what this money was spent on. To free slaves, to stop people from becoming slaves, to gain independence from other countries' rule, to start our own country. But even then, the Civil War debt was almost paid off completely. It was down to about 10% of that, like where it was a year before Civil War started, and would have been paid off within a few years. But then World War I happened, and it went up. Not as high as the Civil War, Revolutionary War, but about half as much. And I believe this is all adjusted for inflation and all that too. Done some Googling on the interwebs and found some charts and graphs and that. But then after World War I, it actually started going back down. It was actually cut in half, but then the Great Depression came along, and these Democrats got this idea of creating all these welfare programs, welfare and food stamps and unemployment and Social Security retirement. So, once again, we got Democrats causing the country to have to spend more money and increase the debt. But they claim it benefited the general public. It was a good thing for the people, everyone claims. So these children nowadays are living on unemployment right now, getting food stamps right now, are bitching about the national debt that was spent to create that stuff for them and pay for that stuff for them. If they don't want the money to be spent on it, then maybe they should stop receiving all that free shit. Their disability and whatnot. But the Great Depression, that just kind of took it back up to the World War I level and kind of kept it steady. But then World War II come along, and then it doubled within a year's time. So, yeah, because the boomers, once again, they fought for your independence and your life and liberty and pursue happiness, and then they fought so all people can be free, and free the blacks, and fought against the Democrats. And then after the boomers let the Democrats start public welfare programs and food stamp programs, now these boomers, once again, have to fight the Nazis and the Imperial Japanese Empire. Well, maybe the boomers should have just stayed home and not done nothing. Because people are bitching about making $30 an hour or having free health care and being able to do whatever the fuck they want after work. Go downtown, have a $40 meal and a half dozen $10 drinks, and spend $100 a pop for a night out. When if we didn't fight the World War II and didn't spend that money on World War II, we all could have been Nazi prison factory slaves right now. So once again, boomers fought for freedom, so all people can be free. So the world can be free, so we didn't have one country or one dictator ruling the world. And of course, some was spent during Nixon and Reagan years during the Cold War and all that. Of course, during Vietnam. But even then, when the boomers were retiring at like mid-80s, 1985-ish, the debt was only $3 trillion. 1985, 15 years later, in 2000, it was $6 trillion. And a lot of that was public welfare programs during the 90s. But Clinton actually came up with welfare reform and actually balanced the budget and actually had an annual surplus and started reducing the debt. And it actually went down from where it was when he was in office. But when he left in 2000, end of 2000 there, it was like at $6 trillion. Well, in the 20 years since, it's now almost $27 trillion. So it's like 5 times as much in the last 20 years. That don't sound like boomer spending. That sounds like millennial daycare spending. %20 of the population's on disability and getting disability check, or like 18 at least. So that's like 1 in 5 people. You go to Walmart, 1 in 5 people get a disability check from the government. Also, the government has grown to be bigger than ever. You have like what, 30%, 25 to 30% or something of the country's population either works for local, city, county, state, or federal government. And then you got another 25 to 30% that live entirely in full or in part off welfare or disability or food stamps and whatnot. So you got half the country supporting the other half of the country. And the problem is, these government people, a lot of them are getting like 80 to 100,000 plus dollar paychecks. Congress, that only works 160 days a year or something, are getting $200,000 paychecks. Or AOC started out at 174,000, and her first year she's complaining that's not enough, that she needed a raise, that she can't afford to pay back her student loans on 174,000 a year. She needed government student loan forgiveness, made her student loans back, because 174,000 a year just ain't enough. Same with that Omar in Minnesota. She wants student loan forgiveness too, so she don't have to pay her loans back. Even though she has $1 million house and a few cars and probably a second house too. She can afford all that stuff. She's probably one of them people out eating in those at them $100 a night restaurants, like all these people around here. Joe Smith had an employee before, started him out at $20 an hour. His first week, showed up 4 hours late, worked an hour, went home. So next day, 4 hours late, worked an hour, went home. Next day, 4 hours late, worked an hour, went home. Thursday, Friday, same thing. 5 hours all week. Joe Smith wrote him a check for $100 at the end of the week and said he didn't need him no more because, well, he wasn't showing up and doing nothing. And he had all this other shit that was more important. And then he said, throwing a fit wine, it's like, well, I can't live off $100 a week. It's like, well, why didn't you say something a week ago? Like, why didn't you show up and work the 60 hours you were scheduled? You were scheduled 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. You're guaranteed $1,200 your first week. You only showed up and collected $100 of that. And then you let someone else have $1,100. Yeah, the guy that didn't show up this morning, come by to apply Saturday. Joe Smith hired him. Told him start you out at $60,000 a year. Be here Monday morning at 8. 8 o'clock this morning, no show, no call. Wow. There are that many 60,000 plus jobs out there where 27-year-olds that just got out of state prison for 12 years because they were accessory of murder at 15 years old can get hired at, and he can afford to blow this one off. But he's probably bitching about how old people made him poor, how old people made him hang out with murderers and drug addicts and drug dealers or whatever when he's 15. He's probably bitching that's old people's fault that he couldn't wake his ass up this morning for a $60,000 a year guarantee. So again, that's why the rich get richer and the poor get poor. Because the rich keep trying to give their money away and the poor keep rejecting it. And then the poor blame someone else that they're poor. And then the poor, after complaining about this national debt that they don't have to worry about paying back, as being the reason why they're poor, they actually want the debt to be increased even more. Well, let's not increase anymore. Let's cut unemployment and all welfare benefits. Let's not do a second round stimulus. And let's just cut everyone off from the government teat. That way our grandkids, our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids ain't calling us boomers and blaming us for being delusional and leaving them with a $100 trillion debt. And then these same children are calling the boomers that fought all their lives for their freedom delusional. Yeah, the boomers are delusional to think that grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids would appreciate their sacrifices and those that died in combat so they could be born free and make all the fucking money they want. Most of these children nowadays, the only way they can make money is if you shove it down their throat and put a DE 50 cal in their mouth and tell them to swallow the fucking money. Otherwise, it's damn near impossible if you give money away to anyone under 35 nowadays. But it ain't the heroes' fault that fought in all these wars and built the country. It sure as hell ain't their fault. They're the heroes that gave us what we got now. And they should be respected. Especially the thousands that gave their lives, who never got to have kids or grandkids. Joe Smith's had employees before where he complained that, well, $800 a week just ain't enough. Like, well, what are you spending the money on? It's like, well, every morning on the way to work, we stop at the gas station and I buy $20 in beer and $20 in cigarettes and a couple cans of dip and some sodas and donuts and that night after work I drink all the beer and then the next day I gotta get more. And all the cigarettes get smoked during the day. This is why nobody can ever finish their schedule. Why everyone keeps getting fired because they come back with only half their yards mowed. Like, well, it took me an hour to do that yard. It's like, well, it takes everyone else 20 minutes. So even if you are a little bit slower, then what were you doing the other half an hour? Oh, I smoked a few cigarettes. Well, you're off the clock then. Well, that's not fair. I should get paid to stand around and smoke cigarettes. Okay, go tell another company that then. Goodbye. Joe Smith noticed that people he known in the past that were getting like welfare and food stamps and had like half dozen kids, had like big screen TVs in every room. They had every video game console and every video game there was. Joe Smith didn't have none of that. Joe Smith was watching over-the-air TV on a 20-inch CRT that was 20 years old at the time. He didn't have HBO and Showtime, all the premium channels, and 800 other channels like these poor people on welfare did. Like, goddamn, Joe Smith needs to be poor and on welfare. Joe Smith could live a better life not working, looks like. And then their bitch is like, well, if the greedy corporations would pay more taxes, then my Mustang wouldn't have been repo. It's like, you had no business buying a Mustang in the first place. You don't even have a job, and neither does your wife, and you got 6 kids. Just getting ridiculous. These liberals, Democrats out there think that everyone else should work for free so they can have all the drugs and fun they want. You want the shit, go earn it, like Jeff Bezos did. A lot of these people don't realize, these children don't realize just what all they can actually have if they spent their money on the right stuff, if they made the right choices, if they actually work the hour schedule and show up to work and didn't quit. So Smith started out at the bottom at $10 an hour, worked his way up, be a manager, and really fast, and became shop manager, and then bought the shop from Brian and started the home shop too on the side, and made tons of money. In his 20s and 30s. So Smith's got enough money saved up in the bank to just kind of not have to work that hard anymore. Just kind of does enough to get by with that, and if don't have any customers that day, well, no worries. Just kind of make some goofy YouTube videos or something, or take a nap, or oh, that's pretty much it for the rant here tonight. For those of you that are still listening. That's Joe Smith's time, opinion, whatnot. Feel free to leave your thoughts and comments and opinions. Whether they're for Joe Smith's opinion or contradicting against it, whatever. Have a good night. Joe Smith signing out.